higher heels, I think.
One person's hell is another's heaven. One person's garbage is another's treasure. Who am I to judge? I just sit out the kitchen window and I watch the world go by. Our neighbor Josie keeps chickens. Not in cages or pens, just out on the porch like house cats, roosting in the deck chairs and pecking at the spots in our sliding glass door. Her front yard chicken run is outlined in a sort of flimsy handmade fence that blows over in a stiff wind, scattering confused chickens around the neighborhood. Every so often, I'll look out of our window and holler, "Chicken!" And Brian sneaks out the door and tries to catch it. Dinner. Instead of a water trough and a nesting shed for the chickens, Josie has a trampoline and a brown upholstered armchair. The trampoline catches rainwater and provides shade, but we're not really sure about the lazy boy. We theorize that perhaps Josie intends to sit there and spend time over a cup of tea with her feathered friends, but we never actually see her doing so. In fact, we rarely ever see Josie. She doesn't really gather the chickens' eggs that they randomly scattered around her porch and in her yard. And we're not even really sure if she even feeds the birds. She really doesn't like us, so we don't ask. Through spring rain and summer heat, we grow increasingly concerned about the chickens' well-being, but the birds, really, they look fat and healthy, and a garden hose appears, snaking its way across Josie's lawn, dripping onto the trampoline top. The armchair develops a pale layer of caked dust and chicken excrement. We name it the chicken shit chair. We develop multiple theories about this chair. Perhaps it has some sort of symbolic meaning or sentimental value to Josie or the chickens. Perhaps it's infested with fleas or bugs that the chickens like to eat. Perhaps it's some sort of weird installation art piece. Then one day we notice that the chickens are gone. Over the next week we see more of Josie than we had in years as she hauls out her possessions into a pickup truck and away. And the day before the rent is due, the truck is gone. The trampoline is gone. Josie is just gone. So we duck through the fence and we have a look around. The overgrown yard is strewn with all sorts of random garbage. Broken furniture, silverware, the remnants of a falling down greenhouse. A butcher knife impaled into a stump. Not one, but two uprooted toilets. In back of the house, we find our friend, the chicken shit chair. We don't get too close. It exudes an odor of swamp, of rotting septic tank. Grass and moss sprout from its creases. Its brown upholstery is mildewed gray and green with thick white splotches of chicken excrement. A few months pass, and eventually, a really nice couple moves in. We shake hands over the fence, and they say they got a sweet deal on the place. 6 months of half-price rent in exchange for fixing the place up. They put on some really good music, open the windows, and start ripping up carpets and repairing walls. Their pickup truck fills with an assortment of broken furniture and garbage for the dump. And the end of the driveway becomes this constantly changing pile of furniture and household objects for passers-by to pick through and take home. Eventually, the new neighbors discover the chicken shit chair. They add it to the collection of freebies in the pile at the end of the driveway. We are baffled. We say nothing. Perhaps they're just storing it there until the next trip to the dump. Maybe there's something special about this chair that we're just clueless about. Then it rains. Hard rain, you know the kind, for several days, beating down. And then when the sun returns, the chicken shit chair sits steaming by the roadside. A little less dusty, but still this mosaic of fragrant green, gray, brown, and white. The next morning over breakfast, Brian points out the window at the end of the neighbor's driveway, where there's two smiling men with a pickup truck. They're lifting the chair into the pickup truck. They'd driven past, spotted the decrepit armchair heavy with rainwater, speckled with grass and chicken dung, and they decided, yes, I gotta have that thing. I have a use for this. And they took the effort to load it into their truck and cart it off and away to its new home. Some people's heavens are my hell. Some people's garbage is someone else's treasure. Who am I to judge? I just sit at my kitchen table and I watch the world go by. Thank you all. Enjoy the show.
You ever get yelled at? I get yelled at a lot, you know, by the universe. When it happens to me, it's always for a good reason. I mean, it's always for my own good. But I had a real problem with it for a long time. I just didn't pay attention. I guess I'm not a very good listener. That kind of changed around the mid-'80s. I happened to be looking for a job in Vancouver, which were scarce as hen's teeth. And the only thing I could find to keep body and soul together and roof over my head was a job in which I was telling adults when to get up, what to wear, what to eat, who they could talk to. Yeah, I was a prison guard. Little old me, correctional officer at Vancouver Pretrial Center. Now the way I got the job is kind of cool. The prison director was a martial arts buff. And I was a martial artist. He saw me in a match one day, came up afterwards and asked if I happened to be looking for a job. He explained all the hoops I had to jump through. I went and jumped through them. And before I knew it, there I was, standing in an overstarched, scratchy uniform in front of this massive steel door, waiting for it to pop open so I could walk onto a pretrial living unit for the first time. Now, you ever get nervous on your first day of the job? Yeah? Well, I was terrified. Standing there, martial arts notwithstanding, there was a prisoner on that living unit, along with 19 or 20 others, who was a reputed contract killer. Now, he just scared the bejesus out of everyone in the place, including me. So the door popped open and I walked on and I'm standing there looking around nervously, and then it happened. The universe yelled, the universe screamed in my ear. But it was a nice voice. It said, "Everything's gonna be okay, Christopher." Now, in order for you to understand that, I want you to fly back with me about a year to a point where I was having a great time working on a short film called Battle of Ego, in case you want to look it up. I had been cast to play the part of one of two kung fu guys in the movie. Flash forward again to me standing with my knees shaking on the tier, looking around, and I noticed a prisoner sitting in front of the big TV. I couldn't see what was on, but I distinctly remember thinking, he's really comfortable in those prison greens. He's kind of holding court with the other prisoners sitting around him. And he looked over at me and back at the screen and back at me and said, "Boss, is this you here?" And I went round and I looked, and sure enough, there I was, doing a jump spin crescent kick in slow motion on the big boob tube. Now, they were too cool to say anything about it at the time, but that story flew round the prison like lightning, and it kept flying around, became part of the prison mythos. See, the universe was right. I mean, turns out, the comfortable guy, well, that was the contract killer. And I never had a problem, not one problem with a prisoner the 5 years that I worked there. Yeah, I was starting to listen. Now, it turns out, though, that spending 5 years working in a place like that, even when the universe says it's okay, is a mind-numbing, soul-sucking endeavor. And by the time those 5 years were up, I was desperate to get out. And, but every time I thought about it, I came to the same conclusion. My girlfriend and I were, we were actually talking about getting married and making plans and saving money, and yeah, it looked like I was going to be there for quite a while longer. Now, that was on my mind the day the universe yelled again, even louder if that's possible. I was escorting a bunch of prisoners to the library. They were taking books back, looking forward to getting new ones. You got to pass the time in this place somehow. And then, out of the blue, one of them said, "Boss, these books are all so unrealistic." "Oh, why is that?" I said, doing my correctional officer duty, pretending to be be interested? And then he said, well, all of the characters in these books, they seem to have such control over their lives. Think about it, boss. You had control over your life. Would you be in this shithole? Yeah, on the outside I was playing it cool, you know, kind of laughing it off. But on the inside I was going, okay, universe, I'll quit. Sheesh. And I did. I quit. I went back to school. I actually became a teacher. And ever since then, I've done my best to listen, just like everyone else. The universe yells at me once in a while, and I do my best to listen. Right now, I'm being told to go sit down. Thanks a lot.
Almost 5 years ago today, a weekday afternoon, I'm waiting for an elevator, worried I'm sweating through my best job interview clothes. It's been about a month since I was browsing the City of Vancouver job site when a posting jumped out at me like I'd won the lottery. Policy Manager, Vancouver Public Library. This job has my name all over it. I was working as a policy manager, and I've always been a fan of, some might say obsessed with the library. It amazes me we have this beautiful public space filled with friendly, helpful people where everyone is welcome. You can leave with books without paying for them, based solely on the promise to bring them back later. If I had my way, I'd live at the library. I'd of course fantasized about working at the library, but the closest I'd come to this, until now, was that my actual workplace had recently moved to an office in the Central Library building. This allowed me to pop downstairs on my breaks, stride purposefully through the stacks, my swipe card and lanyard swinging, pretending I worked there. Finally, this elevator arrives. I ride up, simultaneously convinced I'm going to be late and inappropriately early. I step out of the elevator, jittery with anticipation, my dream job within grasp. 3 women welcome me into a boardroom. They provide me with a paper and pen to take notes. The interview starts. I have to stop grinning. I can't believe I'm actually here in the presence of these literary goddesses, my bookish sisters, who hold the key to my new life. They rotate asking me questions from the job description, standard stuff, policy analysis, research, qualitative versus quantitative data, stakeholder relations, blah, blah, blah. I know all this. It's what I do in my current job. I'm struggling a bit, though, because strictly answering the questions doesn't convey my passion for the library. So I tack a little footnote onto each answer, something to the effect of, I love the library. Finally, we get to the question I've been waiting for, preparing for all my life. Why do you want to work here? I so got this. I let loose, I gush, I praise, I carry on. I love the library, all the branches. I've always loved it. I'll do anything for it. I love the library. And then it's over. I look up at the 3 faces of the interviewers. Their faces are as blank as the pages they've left me to take notes. A terrible sinking feeling is growing in me. I stand up to leave. I now know without a doubt I have blown this interview. I have not acted like a professional seeking a policy analyst job. I have exposed myself as a shameless library fangirl, a library slut. Shame washes over me. The elevator carries me back down. I didn't get the job. Over the next few weeks, and instead of the usual burst of joy I get every morning simply walking in the library building, I feel a knot of shame and humiliation. I worry when I go in to pick up one of my many holds that I'm going to run into one of my interviewers. Witness to my raw desire, my desperate attempt to join their inner circle. I worry I've destroyed a fabulous lifelong relationship. Time did heal this wound, as it can in even the worst cases of unrequited love, which was what this was. My office moved and I'm closer now to the Strathcona Library branch, and it's fabulous. It's beautiful, filled with natural light and a diversity of people from its downtown east side neighborhood. The staff there are beautiful and cool.
Brenda Craigdarroch's girlfriends never figured out exactly when, where and how Brenda had developed the notion that her dentist had a crush on her. Andrea, who knew Brenda for the longest time, remembered vividly that Brenda had uttered something to that effect during a long car ride the two of them had taken from Kamloops to Calgary, and the light-hearted conversation which followed and had them laughing lots whilst driving through the Rocky Mountains. That car ride, however, took place not very long ago, in the summer when Brenda and Andrea had reconnected after running into each other in a Zumba class. Andrea had known Brenda already in high school, but they had been out of touch for some years after that. In Andrea's view, it was unlikely, but not impossible, that Brenda had already conceived of her dentist having a crush on her when they were in high school, and just had not shared that with Andrea, who had not been particularly close to Brenda back then. Cassidy, who had taken Brenda in as her roomie for 2 months after Brenda split up with her fourth boyfriend, learned about the issue when one day she was surprised to see Brenda dress up a bit, and Cassidy teased her for not telling her about her date, to which Brenda replied that she wasn't going on a date. She just went out to a dentist appointment and to buy some groceries and a body lotion and an impact wrench at her favorite hardware store. Cassidy did not let her off the hook, and although one can find some justification for dressing a bit nicer than usual when running errands as those, it was impossible even for Brenda to get a sound argument working for putting on lipstick before seeing her dentist. So eventually Brenda confessed, but stressed that of course she did not reciprocate the feelings her dentist supposedly had for her, and that she was just in a bit of a mess because of her recent breakup. Isabel, Brenda's most consistent friend over the years, who had forgotten when she had first heard of Brenda's dentist's purported philandering, Isabel was the one who almost brought it up to the other girlfriends one night when they were all out for tapas, but Brenda had stayed at home due to a bad cold. And if Isabel had brought it up and said, hey, I guess you've heard that story from Brenda too, that, you know, she thinks her dentist sort of secretly flirts with her, then they would all have said, yeah, that's a bit weird, right? And putting together the bits of information each of them had on the topic, they would soon have gathered that Brenda had been insisting on her dentist's courting and subtle advances for more than 14 years, and further that Brenda had had at least 4 different dentists in that time, 3 male, 1 female, and all things considered, the girlfriends would then have passed a motion that one of them, probably Zoltana, should soon break the news to Brenda that her girlfriends, with all love and respect that they had for her, and knowing full well that Brenda was not the person who has delusional preoccupations normally, would have to tell her that her dentist's gentleness, special care and affection for her and only her most probably existed only in her head, and that the dentist's winks, gestures and bum shakes, if they existed at all, were almost certainly misinterpreted by her. But Isabel never brought it up, and they never put their pieces of the puzzle together, and no conversation containing the phrase delusional preoccupation ever ensued, probably for the better. Zoltana, who by all accounts was the weird one among Brenda's girlfriends, herself holding several beliefs with little connection to the commonly shared reality, had heard Brenda mention her dentist's trifling only once, and had smiled about it, immediately assuming that Brenda was aware of having made it up as a coping mechanism. Just to have something vaguely uplifting to think about when you are tied to a chair with several expensive devices operating in your mouth, and you have to make a hand gesture to ask for permission to swallow. One of the most undignified positions a first world person can get themselves into. And Zoltana actually tried to tell herself the same thing at her next dentist appointment, looking for delicate signs of tenderness in her dentist's demeanor. And it worked for a while, but utterly imploded at the moment when her dentist said, "Your gums are bleeding." To which Zoltana replied, "Yeah, because you just stabbed them with that metal hook. I guess if I rammed that thing into your eyeballs, we'd see some bloodshed here as well." But she did not actually say that. Instead, she lied about her flossing habits. And made the consciously false promise to intensify them, like any normal person would.